facing an impeachment inquiry for privately urging a foreign leader to investigate Joe Biden. Today, President Trump, unprompted, publicly urged another foreign power, China, to do the same. When asked what he hoped Ukraine's president would do about the Bidens following their call.
Well, I would think that if they were honest about it, they'd start a major investigation into the Bidens. It's a very simple answer. They should investigate the Bidens. By the way, likewise, China should start an investigation into the Bidens, because what happened in China is just about as bad as what happened with Ukraine. So I would say that President Zelensky, if it were me, I would recommend that they start an investigation into the Bidens, because nobody has any doubt that they weren't crooked.
Those words about China coming just a week before another round of trade talks with the Chinese.
I have a lot of options on China, but if they don't do what we want, we have tremendous power.
Has he asked the Chinese president to investigate Joe Biden?
I haven't, but it's certainly something we can start thinking about.
President Trump referring to Hunter Biden, who formed a Chinese private equity fund while his father was vice president. In 2013, joining him aboard Air Force Two on an official trip to Beijing, where Hunter Biden met privately with a Chinese banker. The Biden campaign calls the president's allegations of wrongdoing a dismantled conspiracy theory, with Biden taking aim at President Trump last night.
And I'll put my integrity of my whole career of public service to this nation up against his long record of lying, cheating, and stealing any day of the week.
A top House Democrat today blasting President Trump's new call for China to investigate his political rival.
It endangers our elections, it endangers our national security. It ought to be condemned by every member of this body, Democrats and Republicans alike.
Meanwhile, lawmakers today hearing from the former U.S. envoy to Ukraine, Kurt Volker, as part of their impeachment inquiry. Behind closed doors, Volker, the Washington Post reports, said he warned the president's personal lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, that Giuliani was receiving untrustworthy information from Ukrainian political figures about the Bidens, according to two people familiar with his testimony. And tonight, Rudy Giuliani tells NBC News that he does not remember Volker giving him that warning. The intelligence community's watchdog testifies behind closed doors on Capitol Hill tomorrow.
Hey, NBC News fans, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here, and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.